Annuncio vobis, gaudium magnum, habemus papa. Is there anyone who understood the cardinal's words after the Pope's election? Okay, many people couldn't because they did not know Latin. They just relied on news to translate the words of cardinal and announce it officially. But even the BBC took over 10 minutes to announce it officially. But I, as a Latin learner and a speaker, was able to understand it immediately and to my friends next to me. It's Prevost! The new Pope's name is Pope Leo XIV. Like this, Latin is a significant advantage. You can know the Pope's name 10 minutes earlier than other people. Of course, there's lots of advantages to learning Latin. So I, as a leader of HAFS Latin Club Modus Sapientis, will tell the amazing story of Latin education. So before I begin, I'll briefly introduce what Latin is. Latin is a language that was used in the Roman Empire, and it is used throughout history, but it is not used now, only in the Vatican, in papers. It is the root of many languages, such as Italian, Romanian, Portuguese, Spanish, French, and of course, English. People do not use the language itself, but its characteristics and words still remain in many languages today. So many people try to learn Latin, because if they learn Latin, they might be able to understand the concepts of modern-day language better. For example, Spanish learners are very interested in Latin class because they think that if they learn Latin, they might know the principles and the charts of conjugations better in Spanish. And also, some people think that if they learn Latin, they might look fancy. Those phrases like "veni vidi vici," "Cogito Ergo Sum," might make them look fancy and cultured in some societies. However, many drop out of Latin class after a semester or even a few weeks later after the start of the class. So as a leader of the Latin class, I've analyzed the reason why. So I got 3. So the first is this, the noun declension charts. In Latin, we have 5 declension types and 6 declensions: nominative, dative, genitive, accusative, ablative, and vocative. And this chart is a chart that you get in the first day. And you get to memorize the whole chart as your first assignment. Because in Latin, we have 5 times 6 times 2, which is 5 types and 6 declensions and singular plural, and equals 60 suffixes, and those are essential for writing a new Latin sentence. But those are quite difficult. Let me show you an example. If you want to translate the sentence, the farmer loves his servant, you make it as agricola serum sum amat. So in this sentence, agricola is a type 1 noun, and it's a masculine noun, and has a nominative form here, a as a suffix. But if you want to say, I love the farmer, then you should make it sentence as ego agricolam amo. So in this case, you change the suffix to am from a. So noun changes when the role of noun changes in Latin. And also, we have to memorize the genders and types of each noun when learning a new vocabulary. So for example, philia is the word for daughter, and it's a feminine noun, and it's a type 1 noun. But agricola in this case is a masculine noun, but it's also a type 1 noun. So we cannot know the type of noun in the words, by the words. And that's a difficult thing in Latin, so many people drop out when learning new nouns and those noun declensions. And second is the verb. So this is the type 1 are verb conjugation chart. You see all the bunch of conjugations here by the tenses and voices. But that's not it. We have type 2, ed with the long e, type 3, ed with the short e, and with the I stem, and with ire, type 4 conjugation. In Spanish, we have only 3, ar, and ir. But in Latin, we have 4. So if they get another chart in class to memorize, they just give up and leave the class. And the third one is also in verbs. It's in the passive voice in Latin. So in Latin, we have 2 choices of passive voice. But in English, we have only 1. We have only be plus past participle. However, in Latin, there's also an esse plus past participle, but we also have an passive infinitive. I'll show you an example here. So if you want to say, I love something, then you conjugate the word amare, which is an active infinitive of that means to love. And you get amo as a first person singular. But if you want to say, I am love, then you conjugate this word, amari, which is the passive infinitive of amare, it's active. So this is a passive one, and conjugate to amor, first person singular. But you can also say amatus sum, which is an essay plus past participle form. People find this difficult when writing essays because they have different forms, but they have different meanings. And people cannot understand those different nuances, those slight differences in Latin passage. So essay plus past participle contains a slightly past tense, so it's called a passive perfect tense. And the conjugations of passive infinitive is called a passive present, and it contains a present tense. So that slight difference has made people confused and leave the class. So far, you can think that Latin is a very impractical language and a very difficult language to learn. But I'm going to ask you again, why are many schools and high schools and colleges are encouraging students to take the Latin class? And why are they opening Latin classes? And why is there an AP Latin course in College Board, and the College Board is offering students to take the AP Latin exam in May? And why am I encouraging students to enroll the Latin class next semester? Doesn't that mean that Latin has some significance to it? So I guess I have 3 reasons for that. So first, it's an obvious one. You can enhance your language proficiency. So I'll give an example here. This is an excerpt from the SAT question bank. I only got the first 2 sentences here. But if you erase the words that are derived from Latin, you get this. Almost 50% of words are erased. According to research, almost 60% of words in English are derived from Latin. This means that the more Latin origins you know, the better vocabulary will be. So many say that Latin is dead and impractical, but it's actually immortal, hiding in our plain sight and our daily vocabulary. And second, Latin is not just a language, it's a philosophy encoded in words. So let's get this word finitimus. The finitimus is the origin of the word in English, finish. So the word finish is used when we want to express an end of something. If you finish a homework and you ended a homework, then you don't have to do the homework anymore. However, the origin of the word finitimus has the meaning of neighboring to or bordering to. It's about new borders and limits, a new start of an event. So to finish something is to be in the middle of a new start. A finish is never a final. To finish something is to arrive at the new possibilities of a new event in the perspective of Latin. Like this, Latin makes you think when you see a word. When you see an English or Spanish word, they make you think that what is the deep meaning of this word? How was this word generated? They make you think and get the deep implications of each word. To learn Latin makes us see words not as just static, but as layered, evolving, rich with implications, thereby nourishing our minds and soul. And third, Latin can enhance your logical thinking skills. In Latin, we don't have a fixed word order like English. You can switch those words within a sentence. So that's because they love rhythms. Latin speakers and writers love rhythms. They write all sentences like poems. They even have the spondidactyl rhythm, like the long, short rhythms in Latin. So we have to rely on declensions and conjugations when reading a Latin passage. So I'll show an example here. Rex urbem invadit. So the meaning of the sentence is that the king invades the city. So rex is a nominative form of rex, which means the king. And urbem is a type 3 noun of which is an urbs, a accusative form of the city. And invadit is a third person singular of the type 3 verb invadere. But you can also write this sentence like this. Urbem rex invadit and invadit urbem rex. Those all mean the same. However, the nuances are slightly different. In Latin, typically, authors use the words that they want to emphasize in the back, in the end of the sentence. So in this case, invadit urbem rex, the author wants to say, it is the king that invades the city. He wanted to emphasize the king. Like this, Latin can enhance logical thinking skills and interpretation. when learning Latin, you have to spot in detail. You have to look at the declensions, conjugations, and word order. And you have to look at the patterns. Does this sentence contain a cum omission? What is the structured word order? How about a German Latin word order? You have to think. And that process is kind of a gym workout when reading Latin passage. So I believe when you learn Latin, you can enhance your thinking skills. So these are the reasons that I've thought of that we should learn Latin. Many say that Latin is dead. However, I believe it is eternal because it stays in our English words and other Spanish, French words and touches our hearts and offers an insight that goes over time. So why not learn the language that's never dead? Let's go enroll Latin class next semester. Thank you.